Am I Racist? The Daily Wire production starring Matt Walsh just came out. As a movie, it's a half mockumentary, half documentary, middling movie. If you already agree with it, you'll love it. I'm not sure what people who don't have an opinion would think. As a piece of propaganda against the anti-racist, it's excellent. And I'll go ahead and say, as someone with classically liberal, individualistic values, I'm perfectly fine with this kind of propaganda. The anti-racist crowd is pretty disgusting, and this movie does a good job of showing it. The anti-racist, for people who don't know, their entire worldview is that it's not enough to just not be racist. You have to go out of your way to be anti-racist. And a lot of these views are contradictory. You have things that are just inherent racism, like being white. It's essentially a cultural Marxist view of the world that I find really gross. And from that perspective, the movie does a great job of showing the extremes. The way that the movie is done, when I say half mockumentary, half documentary, is the mockumentary part is that Matt Walsh goes in this journey, quote unquote, to become anti-racist. And he's playing a character. He's pretending to talk to these very extreme people to become anti-racist, become an ally. All of the buzzwords you hear in academia, if you're ingrained in the culture war, you're probably familiar with a lot of it. And the documentary part is him just interviewing people who hold these beliefs and letting them speak. Or he's in a character, but they're still just saying what their views are. He just asks questions. It's very similar to What is a Woman? One of the big problems for the movie, frankly, is that they just don't have the money to compete with a Hollywood big budget movie. It'd be really interesting if they had the money to put in to spend $75, $100 million on marketing. Instead, it'll just be seen by the audience they already have. I don't think it's going to change any minds. The movie does do some things very well for what it's trying to accomplish. So the whole goal of the movie is to expose this anti-racist mentality. You're probably not familiar with it if you're just a regular person who doesn't pay attention to politics. You just kind of are trying to get by, whatever. It really exposes the ideology of the DEI community, the diversity, equity, inclusion. Even if you're not familiar with it in theory and academia, if you have a job in the government or a corporate company, you've most likely been through DEI training where they talk about microaggressions and equity and social justice and blah, blah, blah. So the things that this movie does really well, from an entertainment perspective, if you find Matt Walsh's dry sense of humor funny, it is pretty funny. And there's a lot of good parts in there where his acting is actually good when he's in character just interviewing people, but his acting is very middling when he's acting for like the mockumentary part of the movie. I mean, he's not an actor, so it makes sense. But he does a great job in character of kind of trolling these people. So the whole DEI thing, I'm not going to go super deep into it, but essentially it's these companies that are promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what this really means is just anyone who's not a straight white guy, they want in their company. A couple years ago, the Fortune 500 companies hired like 93% non-white men, which is crazy considering the demographics of the country. But what he does that I think is really interesting is a few things. One thing they do throughout the movie is show how much these people charged to talk to him. So he talks to Robin DiAngelo, very famous for her book White Fragility, and all she does is shit on white people and say that they can't talk about race. And she charged him like $15,000 to sit down with him for like an hour or two for training. And you see this throughout the movie, is these people charge thousands of dollars to essentially just call you racist and tell you you're a piece of shit. That's one thing I think the movie does that's very smart. Another thing the movie does that's very smart is he interviews regular people. And this is also kind of why I'm saying that the movie is propaganda, is because we have no idea how many people he talked to get the hour and a half of the movie. You know, if he only talked to the people that he showed, well, then it's crazy. And if he talked to 100 people and got 100 hours of footage and then had to cut it down to an hour and a half or 45 minutes of the documentary part, then it really is just straight up propaganda. But he talks to regular people throughout the movie, and he's asking them their thoughts on systemic racism, if they're trying to decenter their whiteness, and all of them are like, what are you even talking about? Like, I treat people who are nice to me nicely. That's it. If you don't want to deal with race, stop talking about it. Very liberal approach. Sorry, when I say liberal, I mean classically liberal, individualist, not left-wing. These are just regular people. And they're black, white, they're bikers, they're just people on the street. A really smart thing to include, because the other end of it, he's showing the activist. And the activists are very academic. They're throwing out a lot of word salad that if you're not super paying attention and ingrained in this, you won't know what it means. Unfortunately, I do. And they go on and on about systemic oppression and blah, 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 and internalized misogyny and racism, all this bullshit. White privilege is one that everyone's probably heard. And these people are literally saying things like, America is a piece of shit country. It shouldn't be saved. It needs to be destroyed. They're literally saying that smiling at a black person can be condescending and racist. That's part of the Robin DiAngelo part. And you see this throughout the movie, this comparison of regular people being like, why can't we just get along regardless of race, be colorblind, kind of the Martin Luther King approach. And that's in contrast with the academia, I would call it cultural Marxist approach, where they're using race as a lever to push for equity. And for people who don't know, the difference between equality and equity is equality means equality under the law, equality of opportunity. I have the same right to go to the NBA as LeBron James. It ain't going to fucking happen. Equity is equality of outcome, which is essentially just saying we're going to stamp down any success to make everyone equal, but all poor, uneducated, losers, whatever the case may be. If you could lift everyone up and have equality, you'd be the best world leader ever and someone would do it. So that's kind of the difference between equality and equity. And it really shows the difference between regular people who believe in equality and just treating people based on their character, and the academic lunatics and the anti-racist crowd who believe in equity, who believe in systemic oppression. They don't even think that you should do anything individually because who cares if you're not operating within the system. One of the most fascinating parts of the movie is he has a black guy, Ben, who works for him the whole time, and he just pulls money out of his wallet and gives him cash as reparations. He asked Robin DiAngelo, the author of White Fragility, why she wouldn't do it. And he's like, this is something I can do. And she's like, yeah, but that's not like a systemic change. And these people are just complete pieces of shit. But it does get funny because eventually she does go give him the cash that she has in her purse. She gives him reparations. And you can see how deranged these people are. One of the parts is this race to dinner pair. And they're literally just saying that everyone's a racist piece of shit. No men are allowed at these dinners. And they charge like $5,000. And all they do is call the white women racist. It's insane to see it. I thought all of that stuff was very effective for the view that they're trying to push. And the last thing I'll say about things that I thought he did that were really smart, he kept asking these people questions who were the activists, the academics, and he would ask them contradictory questions, and they couldn't answer because their worldview is literally designed to be contradictory, to be infinite. They want you to make a lifelong commitment to the ideology. They don't actually give a fuck about results, and they're making a lot of money in the meantime. So one example of this, and this was really funny too, is very beginning of the movie, he's talking to this woman who wrote some book, The Road to Anti-Racism or The Map to Anti-Racism or something, and they're talking about having young daughters. The woman is bitching that her young daughter prefers white princesses. And she's essentially saying that she kind of lectures her daughter about not liking the princesses of color, is what she says. Matt Walsh goes, yeah, I have a young daughter too. Her favorite movie is Moana, like her favorite Disney character, princess, blah, 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 whatever. I haven't seen Moana. I don't know if she's a princess, but I think she's Samoan. So he's like, she wants to dress up as her for Halloween. And the woman's like, oh, that's great. And he's like, well, isn't that cultural appropriation? Like, I don't know if I should buy her like the hula skirt and the outfit and blah, blah, blah. And the woman goes, I would absolutely fucking not. And she's like telling him to lay into his 4-year-old daughter for cultural appropriation for liking Moana. But at the same time, she's shitting all over her own daughter for liking white princesses. And he does this to all of them. He asks them these paradoxical questions because their worldview is nonsensical. It's not designed to get results. And you see it throughout the movie. Everything that they say is fucking hateful and divisive. And I don't like to get into my own views too much, but I'm very individualistic. I do not like this collectivist shit. I do not like this sins of the father fucking nonsense. And all of these activist people talk about it throughout the movie of just, you should be ashamed because of what your ancestors did. And I should be able to treat you like shit because of what your ancestors did to mine. It's absolute fucking horse shit. Fuck these people. And, in general, I'm not a huge fan of propaganda, but these fucking DEI people have infiltrated every corporation, every college, every institution from the government all the way up. We all have DEI training now. We all have microaggression training now. We all have equity and environmental justice awareness and whatever the fuck training now. So part of what the movie is trying to demonstrate is that these people hold a lot of fucking power, but no one actually likes their views. It actually gets to the point where his fake character that he created gets to go on like local television shows as a DEI expert. It's unbelievable. But at the end of the day, it's only going to be seen by people who already follow the Daily Wire, who already agree. And as a movie, just stepping back a bit, it is like kind of a half documentary, half mockumentary. It's fine. I do think that the messaging is interesting. And as far as trying to convince people of what he believes in, I think the style is very effective. And showing the contrast between these people and the ones that they show who are regular people is a very smart move. But like I said, and this is kind of the thing that I had an issue with What Is a Woman, is we don't know, did he interview only the people in the movie and they were all just batshit crazy? Or did he interview 1,000 people and cut out 995 of them? I don't think they would do that because the mainstream media would go crazy, but I at least wanted to point it out. I don't have too much else to say about it. If you don't like the anti-racist crowd, I think you'll love the movie. If you like his dry style of humor, I think you'll find it funny. If you don't care, I don't know what you would think. You probably just find it boring and kind of confusing. And obviously, if you're part of the DEI community, you probably already think he's a racist. So who cares? This is one I assume the critics will just ignore. It has like no reviews right now on Rotten Tomatoes. I guess I'll be one of the first online at least. But I'll leave it here for this. If you've seen it or if you're going to see it or whatever, let me know what you think. I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.